Today I'm going to be doing a transmission service on a 2015 RAM Promaster City. Please check the description for all the details. You could probably not watch anything else in this video and just check out the description and find out all the critical information you need to know, the tools I'm using, the specs, the torque specs, the fluid quantity, the fluid type. I will link all of that in the description. The other thing that I will mention in the description is what vehicles this applies to. This applies to a wide array of vehicles. This is a 948 TE transmission. It's a 9-speed automatic. It is found, of course, in the RAM Promaster 2015 through 2022. It is also found in Jeep Cherokees, Jeep Renegades, some Acura models, and the Fiat 500X. So it is across a wide range of vehicles. This should be the same procedure for all of those. However, I am obviously going to be doing it on this 2015 RAM Promaster City. It's a relatively short list of supplies you will need. However, when it comes time to check the transmission fluid level, that's where it gets slightly complicated. The first thing I will mention is a diagnostic scanner. I will link both the Zurich ZR15S that I have from Harbor Freight as well as the Innova. I will link those both down in the description. The one caveat I will give is that I've heard newer software revs. I've had this tool a couple years and I haven't updated it lately, and it reads transmission temperature. I have heard feedback from some people that have bought new ones, and apparently they've changed that and you might have trouble accessing transmission temperature. So I'm just simply going to tell you what I have, but you may run into some difficulties, so please do some homework on that because I can't confirm that the newer ones have issues, but that's what I've heard. Personally, this one's been working great for me. And you can use whatever device will tell you transmission temperature. You could probably even use an infrared temp gun on the transmission pan, or the bottom of, there's not really a pan on the bottom. You could probably hit the bottom with a temp gun and get relatively close. I would guess the internal temperatures will be a couple degrees higher. But we're not going to cover all that because I'll just be plugging the scanner in and reading it off the OBD2 port. The next thing on the list is the fluid, and I have chosen to use Valvoline Max Life ATF because it is recommended for applications requiring the Mopar ZF transmission fluid. We should come in just about right with this 1 gallon jug. However, I do have another gallon around. I will certainly fill you in down in the description as well as towards the end of the video how much it actually took. Next, we have a 6mm hex bit and an 8mm hex bit, as well as a 3/8 drive standard ratchet and a 3/8 drive torque wrench. And the last tool on the list is the little pump we're going to use to pump the fluid up into the hole. It's possible maybe that you could put some small funnel in the top and maybe feed through the engine bay. We're not going to take that route. That seems like it's asking for trouble in my opinion, so we're just going to use this pump, again, linked in the description below, and it should make easy work of refilling this transmission. The last thing on the list here, I will link the actual tool in the description. However, I have made a dipstick. I just took a piece of 1/4-inch rod and welded a nut onto the end, measured out 140 millimeters, that's how long the tool is if you buy it, and I've marked it at what is equivalent to 16 millimeters up. So I actually measured from the top down because it's 140 long. So I am just up 16 millimeters, which is exactly the level the transmission is supposed to be at, the transmission fluid, at 122 degrees. So when I'm done with this and I've added fluid, I'll run it and let it warm up to 122 degrees and verify that it's at that mark and adjust accordingly. So I will also link a great article. I'll link the tool, but I'll also link a great article in Gears magazine about making this tool. I actually did not follow their specific instructions, but that's what gave me the idea to make one. And they've got a chart talking about what level it's supposed to be at what temperature and all of that. I just chose 122 degrees because that was easy. And then I specifically made this tool with exactly that in mind. So whether you make your own tool or buy the one I've linked below, it's like $12 on Amazon. Either way, this is something that you should have. I will cover the common recommendation. In fact, even the Haynes manual recommends doing this method, and I do not agree with this, but they recommend measuring how much fluid you take out and then filling it with the same amount. They do also recommend kind of making with a hanger, a makeshift dipstick. I've made a makeshift one, but I've probably gone a little overboard with having measured it out and marked it for 122 degrees and all of that. But so they kind of reference measuring it with a dipstick, but they are kind of vague on it. And I would not recommend using the measuring the fluid and replacing it with the same amount method, because I have no idea if this fluid is at the right level to begin with. This vehicle has 256,000 miles on it, and I do not know the history on it. We're going to see what the fluid looks like. I don't know if it's been changed ever. Presumably it has been, but I don't know. And I most definitely don't know if it's at the right level or not, so I'm not going to take any chances. I'm going to measure it with this tool to make sure it's at the correct level when it leaves here. I believe they say this is lifetime fluid. I don't think there is such a thing, or else the other take would be that, well, when the transmission fails, that's the end of the life of the fluid. I don't really want to take that chance. I think this has had a good run already at 256,000 miles, but we're going to keep that going by putting some fresh fluid in it. So I would probably recommend, I believe under harsh circumstances, which that's debatable whether or not all climates might qualify, whether they're too hot or too cold or this or that or the other thing, or even installed in a cargo van. Either way, I believe under harsh circumstances, they recommend every 60,000. So that is what I would recommend, is servicing the transmission every 60,000. We're only going to get about half the fluid out anyways, so it's relatively inexpensive and relatively easy. So let's get going. The first thing we'll do is remove the wheel with a 17mm socket. Now we can sort of access the fill plug. It is not very easy to access, so I'll do my best to show it to you. I'm probably not going to be able to capture a lot of this very good on video. But with the driver's side front wheel off, we can go in here, and I've set a light inside here so you can see it, and it is that right at my fingertip. That is a 6mm hex bit needed to loosen that up. And that is the first thing we want to do, is make sure that we can crack open the fill plug and we're not going to have issues refilling once we've drained the fluid out. I have placed my ratchet in here just so you can get an idea. And there's just enough room to swing the handle and crack that thing loose. Hopefully I can get enough leverage on it. I'm not really going to be able to capture a good shot of me doing this, but you can see how much I have to maybe struggle here. Get my hand in here. I pulled the light out, I swung the ratchet a little further forward, and I'm going to try reaching through the front of the strut area. I'm going to try my flex head ratchet and see if that maybe doesn't give me just a little bit more room to work with. Okay, with my flex head ratchet in here, the handle is sticking out a little further, giving me a little more leverage and a little bit better angle. We'll see if that does the trick. It still is terrible. All right, I believe I just broke it free. I did break it free. So it popped free and a bit popped out all in one shot. So we'll take this out by hand. I can reach in here. And there is the fill plug. So that's a battle. If you can do that, the rest of this job is going to be easy. Now that we have the fill plug opened up, we can drain out the transmission fluid, which requires the 8mm hex bit, and these typically take a pretty good pull. And that one actually was a little easier than I expected. We'll get the drain pan under here, and we'll see what this fluid looks like. And if it looks like it's had a rough, long life, or maybe it's been serviced lately. All right, it is definitely dark, but not terrible. It's maybe not as dark as I was thinking. You can see it's a little bit dark there, but that's not bad. That doesn't concern me, although it'll still be great to get some fresh fluid in this thing. It is down to a dribble, so we're going to reinstall the drain plug, and we're going to torque it down to 26 foot-pounds. I've now got the pump tube in the fill hole. I'm going to put the other end in a 1 gallon jug of Valvoline Max Life ATF, and I'm going to pump about 3.5 quarts in to get a baseline fluid level. I do have the drain pan underneath it in case for some reason it spills out at all in this process. The tube did fit in there very snugly, so unless there's like an airlock issue and it's trying to force something out from around the tube, it should go very well. And so far I don't see anything coming out, and I've pushed probably about 1 quart of fluid in already. Now that I've got 3.5 quarts in, I'm going to remove the fill tube, reinstall the fill plug, just spinning it on by hand a little bit just to cover the hole. And now I'm going to start it up, and I'm going to shift through the gears, reverse, neutral, drive, neutral, reverse, and park. I've plugged in the diagnostic scanner. A couple things to mention. Number one, I've got the vehicle level on the lift. You need to have it level when you're checking fluid level. And the second thing to mention is I've got the exhaust plumbed outside here because it's about 15 degrees outside, and I'm going to warm this thing up inside, but safely. So when we plug our scanner in, I'll show you how to go through the menu on this particular scanner. We're going to hit menu. We're going to scroll down to service check, hit enter. Is this our vehicle? 2015 RAM Promaster City L4 2.4 liter? Yes. It's going to link up. And there we go. Transmission fluid temperature, 72 degrees. So we've got 50 degrees to go before we can check the level. We're actually probably going to check it first when we hit about 115, just to make sure we don't overshoot it. Here's a close-up of the dipstick that I made. You can see I just welded a nut onto this rod, took a cutoff wheel and just marked specifically where it needs to be at 122 degrees. So there it is. It's a little long, but it does fit in there pretty good actually. The best spot that I found for using the dipstick in the transmission is through the center of the vehicle. So I am going to be coming at it from this way, and you're going to be looking at it through the wheel well, just like we did everything else. And there is room to reach in here, and you do need to be careful of the hot exhaust. As it's running, it is warming up, but there's room to reach in here, drop this in, pull it out, and carefully remove it and get a good read on it. We now have the level dialed in. It took almost exactly 5 quarts, so more than I was expecting, but we're good to go now. So now that we've got our level set, I've turned off the vehicle. I'm going to reach in here, reinstall the fill plug. The torque spec on the fill plug is 17 foot-pounds, and I'm going to do my best to get a torque wrench in here and do it to spec. There's our 17 foot-pounds. Now it's time to reinstall the wheel. Make sure you align the valve stem through one of the slots. Torque spec for the steel wheels is 63 foot-pounds. For the aluminum wheels, it's 89. And now we've got this all wrapped up and ready to go for another 60,000 miles. We'll see you next time.